You're listening to Trek FM.
Welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's 50th Anniversary Rewatch project, where the hosts of the network get together and discuss for you all 729 adventures in the Star Trek franchise. My name is Brandon-Shea, and joining me today is...
Mike.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am very happy because we've got two wonderful episodes of Star Trek to talk about today. I love both of these. Today we're talking about Voyager's Macrocosm and Deep Space Nine's Rapture. In Macrocosm, Janeway and Neelix come back from an away mission to procure some supplies and meet some new friendly aliens. And when they come back, everybody has been taken over by little bugs.
They're not so little.
Some of them are little, not all of them are little.
Some of them, yeah. I guess they are.
So, tell me about this episode. What do you think, Mike?
I think this episode is pretty great. I'm down with this episode. I think that it's got this really weird structure, which works very well. I think that it's very clear, as we saw yesterday with First Contact, that Brandon Braga, who wrote the episode, is in love with Ridley Scott's Alien, which you cannot blame him for because Ridley Scott's Alien is a masterpiece and one of the best movies ever made. And I think that it's cool to see this sort of like weird high concept sci-fi idea. And I think this is the type of thing that Voyager does best. The way that the episode starts with them coming onto the ship and having absolutely no idea what's going on and spending basically 2 acts basically with no dialogue, where it's just Janeway fighting these alien things until she gets up to sickbay, is pretty awesome. And then to flash back and find out what happens and to see that this is like totally the beginning of Alien now, where it's like, okay, like we went down onto a planet and we found an unknown, alien thing, and we want to bring it back to study, but we can't because we might contaminate the ship, and then they beam it up accidentally in this case, and it contaminates the ship and it's killing everyone on board. I mean, that's awesome. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm totally down with that. I like the idea of there being, macro viruses or whatever. I like, the Doctor getting extra stuff to do. And remember a couple days ago when we were talking about Neelix's Pleasure Planet and everything, and how like crazy it was that was a thing, and how, as Voyager is known to do, they sort of like returned to it on occasion. Like there was, I think, in the Q and the Gray, right, where I think it's in the Q and the Gray where B'Elanna goes onto the holodeck, and Neelix is like, I hope you're okay with some of the modifications that Tom and Harry made with these, hot women over here. And she's like, that's okay. I've made some modifications of my own. And 2 hot dudes, come strolling up next to her. It's like all of this is going, and it's like, oh, we've added this, we've added that. And we've turned it into a thing. We've turned it into a beach community, like Malibu and from The Big Lebowski, and also, the real world. And, I think that the whole point of this, and this is what I'm hoping, right? All of this setup over like 3 episodes or whatever it is of this admittedly pretty stupid program on the holodeck was all leading up to the scene in Macrocosm where they're attracted to infrared energy. Well, let's turn on the holodeck, and maybe they'll all go over there, and let's program the holodeck characters to react the way they would if, these people were being attacked. And they just do this like hard cut to that paradise on the holodeck with these massive alien, viruses like flying around, attacking all of these, people who are just enjoying a nice day at the beach, and they're all like, and they're losing their freaking minds, and it is like something straight out of a B horror movie from the 50s, and I'm like, yes, see, you're playing the long game, but you totally earned it, because I'll watch any teasers with Neelix dancing and, whatever, if it means that, 5 episodes down the road, you're going to have giant viruses attacking people on a holodeck beach.
Works for me.
I mean, come on. I'm just like, it's just like one of those eureka moments, where like, because I was watching these episodes and I'm like, I can't believe that this is the thing they decided to do on. Now, if we get to the next episode and they're just like back on the holodeck beach planet, like everything's normal, I'm going to be really disappointed. But if it was like all like if like Brandon Braga wrote this episode and he's like, I want to do this scene, and then he goes into the writer's room and he's like, guys, just for like the 2 episodes before this, can you just put in like little scenes where they're on this thing, just so that we can kind of like plant the seeds, so then we can have this moment, this one shot, which is like something out of like Sharknado. I mean, that to me is like pure genius. And like, I'm not being sarcastic or anything. I think that is straight up pure genius. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in all of Star Trek.
I'm glad that you love it so much. I don't think that they probably put that much thought into it, though, myself.
I hope they did. I will find out. One day we'll find out.
I like this episode for a lot of the same reasons that you said too. Like, I wrote down Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor, right, from Terminator 2. Like, it's definitely that type of a feel that he was going out for in this episode, which I think is pretty cool. This episode is really when I started to get confused with fandom. I'm glad to hear that you like it so much, because I was watching it and I had bought this magazine that had it was like 50 years or it was 40 some years of Star Trek. I don't remember what year it was, and it went through, one magazine went through all the episodes, like half of them, and the next magazine went through half of them, and it rated them all and it gave synopsis of them all. And this episode was given a 1-star review in this episode, and I'm like, what? I like that episode. I think that's really good. And so this is when I started to realize that maybe I didn't like the same episodes that other people liked. But I'm glad to hear that you like it, because I think it's a great episode. It's dark and moody. It's got all the things that I like in it, these details to give and show that the life support is down because they're all sweaty. There's no air being circulated and things like that. Like, it adds to the mood of the show that you don't normally get.
Yeah, I can't understand people not liking this episode. I mean, I understand that it's weird and different and crazy, and that's all of those are reasons why I like it so much. There's way worse episodes of Star Trek that we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, no. Really?
I mean, hey, it's not terrible, but it's no Macrocosm. I don't see any, beach people being attacked by giant viruses, so, it's already got one strike against it.
One other thing that I like that's a really awesome callback into this that makes me have a big chuckle, like not quite as much as with when Ron with the blood there, but when they're crawling through the corridor after Neelix had been like sprayed or whatever, she's like, you have fluid in your lungs, and Neelix just says lung. I love it because he only has one lung, because way back in season 1, Kes had to donate him a lung. So I mean, it's great that they make this callback, right? So it's very subtle, and probably most people I think would miss it, but I think it's a great callback, and I like it a lot.
I missed it. That's good. I like that.
Well, shall we move on to our terrible episode of the day?
It's not terrible.
I love this episode so much. Rapture, Deep Space Nine. Sisko goes full Avery Brooks in this episode and decides to sacrifice his life, basically, almost, because he is having visions and he's starting to understand the plan of everything with Bajor and the prophets after he finds the wonderful, mysteriously hidden village city of Bahala.
Yeah. They get their new uniforms in this episode.
They do. I thought, which is interesting because in my recollection, I thought that this aired before. I never checked the dates and stuff, but I was pretty sure that this aired before First Contact. I was sure that Deep Space Nine had their uniforms first, but I might be wrong on that.
No, yeah, First Contact, it definitely had them first in First Contact. I know that they even talked about, I think in the Deep Space Nine companion, that they had the uniforms ready to go at the start of the season, but they weren't allowed to give them to them until they were shooting an episode which they knew for sure would air after First Contact premiered, because they wanted them to premiere in the movie.
Weird.
And yeah, it's nice, because it's a very, very easy way to tell exactly where First Contact fits into the continuity, especially since First Contact has Worf in it, so you kind of want to watch that, while you're doing your Deep Space Nine rewatch, or at least I do. But yeah, they get their new uniforms, and it's fine. It's fine. I don't know. I just this episode actually feels a lot to me like Sacred Ground, the Voyager episode, which I talked about with Ken a few days back, and I think that Deep Space Nine does a better job of handling the sort of like debate of science versus religion, and the idea of faith and all that stuff. I think that Deep Space Nine does a very good job of handling that for the most part. I think that this is one of those instances where it kind of falters. There's that good scene in the middle where Kira is debating with Dax and O'Brien about whether or not this is something that they should be doing and all this stuff. But I don't know. It feels a lot like sort of a plot device in a sense, which just sort of allows them to deal with this subject matter instead of like something which is earned. Like, I mean, this is why I kind of can't stand Harry Potter, where it's just like, you have a spell, okay, cool, and like here, it's like something which happens, they can't explain it, you don't even really know why. It's just he's saying like, through this thing I've determined that I don't think that the Bajoran should join the Federation, and I don't know why really, but it's just a feeling that I have, but I feel really strongly about it. And it's like, what was the point of that in the larger story? I don't know. Or even in this story. I don't know.
See, to me, like, this is an incredibly important episode in Deep Space Nine, right? Like, things really start to change in this episode. It's important for Sisko to come to terms with the fact that he's the emissary. Like, he doesn't really want to be the episode. We had that one Ascension previous when he did deal with it a little bit, and that guy came and said, I want to be the emissary. I think I'm the true emissary. And Sisko's like, go right ahead. But in this one here, like, he's full on being the emissary. He's getting a vision from the prophets, and he's affecting the outcome of what's going to happen with Bajor. The whole purpose of Deep Space Nine, and why I think there should have been an 8th season, is because Sisko's job was to get Bajor into the Federation, and that was the setup with Emissary. And at the end of What You Leave Behind, Bajor is still not a member of the Federation. So that's why I feel Deep Space Nine was not completed. And in this episode, Bajor could have been joined into the Federation, and Sisko uses his influence as the emissary to prevent that from happening. That is his actual job and why he is there.
But do you really think that the character of Sisko, do you think that we see that change here? Because I don't really see this as like some sort of like demarcation point. I don't see like Sisko in the next episode, and maybe I it's just because I never noticed it. I'm asking. Not because I necessarily disagree with you, but because I don't see it. Like, do you see Sisko as being different after this episode? Not just in like what we see from this episode, but like in the next episode, do you think that like if you took this episode out, would you be like, why is he all of a sudden cool with being the emissary? Because I don't see that.
I don't know. I guess I'd never thought about it. It's just, to me, like it's just a chapter in the story that's going along. So,
and I
would
mean,
it
like
matter if this wasn't
after
there?
this episode, like let's say in the next episode, he was like, oh my God, I'm totally emissary, dude. You know, like I totally get it now. What the Bajorans have been saying for the past 5 years, it finally, like a light bulb went off, in my head, and now I understand. But I really don't feel like they did that.
I don't know. I kind of think it does. Like, for one of the aspects, like it kind of changes his relationship with Kai Wynn in this episode, which is changed later on.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that was kind of cheap here, because he's like hanging out with her and everything, and then, I mean, is he buddy with her next time too?
No, he's not buddy with her, but there is a difference in tone with the way that he's handling her. Now, it's the season 5 finale. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm drawing a blank right now, but when she comes to him and he like convinces her to sign the non-aggression pact with the Dominion, like he's talking to her differently than he normally does, and I think this episode has something to do with it because there's that scene where Kai Wynn tells him, she's like, "Look, I was in a Cardassian prison for 5 years. I served the occupation in my own way. And we realize there's a layer that we learn about Wynn in this episode that we've never learned about her before, right?"
Yeah, and that I thought was cool. I like that scene quite a bit, I have to say.
But I don't know. I think it's completely fascinating. This whole story. I think this is one of the most important episodes of Deep Space Nine myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see as we continue. If I'm going to be on the lookout for that to see if I see it. But it's something which I never noticed before, and maybe it was because this is one of those episodes which I sort of dismissed. And again, I don't think it's bad. I really don't. It's just something that like with Sacred Ground, and I talked about this a couple days ago with Sacred Ground. It's like it's presenting a certain ideology which I don't agree with. I just don't agree with, and that's not to say that they're wrong or anything. It's just I'm coming at it from the opposite end of the spectrum, and I because of that I have trouble embracing the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah. So, anyway,
there's a few more things I want to point out, like just a little things that I really like in it that I think are cool here before we go. So, like, I just want to say here. So, what Sisko says there, like, after, and he's so upset, right? He's like, for 1 minute, I understood it all: Bahala, the orb, the occupation, the discovery of the wormhole, and the coming war with the Dominion. Like it's just there's so much in that sentence in that. He learns so much about what the prophets have in mind for Bajor and what they're doing with Bajor. And he's like, I understood it all. And I think that's amazing. And I'm just like, I want to know what he knew, right? Because the fact that he references the occupation in that and how there's a reason for it, And, these locusts that he talk about are the Dominion ships. And the ending of the episode, right at the end when they're all talking about it. And, they're all like, they say faith is enough. I like that ending for the episode, and that faith should be enough.
Yeah, and I guess that's like the biggest problem that I have with it. But that's me. so yeah, yeah. I guess that's it. Yeah.
Anywho, well, where can people find you when you're not fighting little weird bugs?
You can find me right here on Trek FM. Doing Stage 9 with John Mills, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K.
And you can find me here on the network with new episodes of Melodic Treks, which is all about the music of Star Trek. And you can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Mutala. And every once in a while I poke my head up in the Babel Conference. So join us again tomorrow for our last episode in this block, where we talk about Darkness and the Light and Fair Trade.